Rightio, everyone. Thank you very much. Welcome to this evening's agenda briefing for Tuesday, the 12th of November. We're having a slightly late start. Councillor Spencer Teo, the Deputy Mayor, had a few issues. We're ready to start now. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'd like to declare the meeting open formally and start by acknowledging the Whadjuk people, the traditional custodians of the land. We also pay our respects to elders, both past and present. And in accordance with the City of Canning Policy CM 105, agenda briefings are conducted to provide elected members with a forum to ask questions of the City's administration to enable informed decision-making by Council at the following week's Ordinary Council meeting. Agenda briefings are not decision-making forums. Questions may be asked and answered, but no debate or discussion is permitted. Questions must specifically relate to an item on tonight's agenda. Elected members and employees must disclose any financial proximity or partiality interest that they may have in an item on tonight's agenda and declare the interest at the commencement of the briefing or at the very latest when the item is about to be discussed. And financial proximity and impartiality interests are to be disclosed in accordance with the provisions of the Local Government Act. Elected members disclosing a financial or proximity interest must not participate in that part of a briefing relating to their interest and must leave the meeting for the duration of the item. Agenda briefings are, of course, open to the public. The briefing is being live streamed. And lastly, please ensure mobile phones are turned off or at least turned to silent for the duration of the meeting. Thank you. Announcements. I'd like to start by announcing why we're all wearing green tonight, or most of us are, and thank you very much for those who have taken part. Councillor Paul Tuchek, can I get you to say a few words and tell people why we're all in green tonight?
Thank you again, Mr. Mayor. Wearing green tonight, the international symbol or colour for mental health is green, so that's why we're doing it for tonight. Mental health awareness is important at every stage of life, from childhood to adulthood. And I'd also like to thank everyone for their donations for Zonta House and their monetary donations for mental health as well. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Tuchek. We move on to item 2, attendances. We have an apology this evening from Councillor Yvonne Rodriguez, who's unable to join us this evening. The rest of the council is here. There is no approved leave at item 2.2. Disclosures of interest. CEO, do you have any disclosures?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. No, I've received no disclosures of interest for tonight's meeting.
Thank you. Question time for the public. We only have 2 members of the public here with us tonight. Sian, Stephen, thank you very much. Neither of them wish to ask any questions this evening, so I don't propose to open public question time at item 4. We will move on to deputations at item 4.3, of which there are none. Items brought forward for the convenience of those in the public gallery, there are none. Reports of committee meetings, there are none. The first reports, item 7, there are none from the Office of the Chief Executive Officer. The first item tonight is 7.2 from the Office of Miss Lorraine Driscoll, the Director of Corporate and Commercial. The item is CC 024 of 24, the title of the report being the Monthly Financial Report for September 2024. The Office's recommendation appears on screen, also on page 6 of tonight's agenda. Are there any questions in relation to the monthly financial report, councillors? Councillor Secon.
Thank you, Mayor Hall. Just under capital expenditure, just want to find out, do we still anticipate the major renewals for Riverton Leisureplex to be completed by the end of this financial year?
Director Bowe.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Those works are the subject of a tender, Councillor Secon, and we anticipate that the outcome of the tender will be referred back to Council in December for appointment of the contract. So we will the contract will be appointed. Their ability to deliver what's an extensive body of work in a 6-month period will be challenging, but we expect that the large majority of those works will be committed before the end of the financial year.
Thank you. Councillor Kunze.
Thank you, Mayor Hall, through to Director Driscoll. I'm just wondering if you can update Council with respect to what percentage of collection the city's received with respect to rates, revenue and so forth this year.
Director Driscoll, do you have an up-to-date figure? Other than
Thank
that,
you.
that's in the
Through you,
report.
Mr Mayor. The figures in the report are up to the end of September, obviously. So we've collected 75 million so far of 138. I haven't got the latest figure today, and I did intend to get that for you, but I will bring that back to you before next week's council meeting.
We'll get an update for next week, councillor.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Bain, thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I refer to paragraph 19, section A, purchase orders raised but goods not delivered by suppliers, the Ken Street Weir. Can the city please advise what was ordered and not delivered for this project, and also what stages it is at in the design of the canoe club storage facility, the playground and the car park? Thank you.
Director Bowe, can I refer that question to you?
Yeah, certainly, Mr Mayor. The invoices that are outstanding relate to the engagement of Emerge Associates, Councillor Bain, who are the landscape architects, and there's also another company who have undertaken the Aboriginal engagement and the establishment of the work that's undertaken there. In relation to the Canoe Club storage facility, that tender has closed, and unfortunately none of the respondents met the value for money criteria, so we will have to revisit the market in relation to that particular one. The car park, the designs have not commenced as yet in relation to that particular project, and Emerge also are undertaking the detailed design of the playground and the associated public realm elements there.
Councillor Bain, follow up?
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. So does the city anticipate and expect that those three projects will be delivered and completed in 2025? Thank you.
Director?
Yes, we do, Councillor Bain. We were proposing to make a presentation at the Strategic Issues briefing later this month, but we will update Council via memo, given that the agenda for that briefing session was fairly significant. So we plan to have that out over the next couple of weeks, giving a status update on all those projects.
Thank you. Thank you, councillors. We'll move to the next item, which is CC 025 of 24. The title of the item is Proposed Land Lease, Baris Education and Culture Foundation, located at 40 Edgeware Street in Lynwood. The recommendation appears on page 45 of tonight's agenda. It also appears on screen. Do we have any questions in relation to the lease? Councillor Hearn, yes.
In the notes, it says that alternative uses for the site have been considered. Can you advise, please, through you, Mr Mayor, to Director Driscoll, what alternative uses for this site have been considered? And I know no public consultation has been done, so I presume this means by the city exclusively.
Director?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'll take that question on notice.
We'll get an answer for you on both counts. Thank you, Councillor Hearn. Any further questions?
I do have a couple, thanks. So I'm pretty strongly of the view that kindergartens and preschools are pretty much the remit of the state government, and they receive quite a lot of state and federal funding. My question to Director Driscoll is, was the state government approached about returning control of this site to the state government?
Director, was that one of the considerations?
Through you, Mr Mayor. No, our negotiations have been with Baris, who've been there for 20 years, so we haven't contacted state government to return the land.
Thank you. That's a no.
May I please ask why this was not considered as an option?
Director Driscoll.
Through you, Mr Mayor, the service that's provided is a well-utilised service. The organisation were keen to remain. The service they provide are consistent with the land use of that area. And there's also obviously a revenue stream.
Councillor?
So based on the straight line depreciation used in the notes, it's my estimate that City of Canning ratepayers, in addition to state and federal funding, which is collected from ratepayer taxes, have subsidised this school already to an amount of approximately $300,000, and that's purely an asset depreciation. It doesn't include opportunity cost or contract administration. And based on this contract, the City of Canning ratepayers will contribute another $50,000 in asset depreciation towards the running of this school. Is that a correct estimate?
Director Driscoll?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm not familiar with the figures that you're referring to, so if you'd like to send them through to me, I can provide a more detailed response prior to next week.
I'll just ask the CEO to provide some narrative. CEO?
Yeah, thank you. The way the lease negotiations have transpired is that, and the key terms essentially look to transition and transfer the asset depreciation costs to Baris. So the depreciation of the asset will now, or the value of that will now rest with Baris through the key lease terms. So they will pay us the remaining asset life of the asset that exists. Appreciate that the previous, I think it's 13 years that they have been on site. We haven't sought to recoup those funds. That decision was made by a previous council. They had acknowledged that the community purpose of Fountain College in setting up the Baris facility. We should acknowledge that this asset is not owned, whilst has been transitioned and transferred to the city. It was not built by the city, and the lease land sits on a broader public open space that is under the care, control and management of the city. So we have sought through this lease to remove the subsequent costs of the building, both in depreciation and maintenance, and that now rests with Fountain College under this Baris lease.
Thank you. Councillor Hearn, did you have any other questions?
Sorry, I would say from my view, this college has delivered services that are not within the remit of local government going forward. They are considering moving into services babysitting, childminding, which is generally now a private enterprise and also receives a huge amount of federal funding and is also not the remit of local government. It has cost ratepayers accounting quite a lot of money.
I just have to get you to ask a question. We just can't give opinions. You can say all of that next week, but if you have a question, Councillor, I'll just get you to ask the question.
Is there any comment on how an organisation is not financially self-sufficient, it's apparently operating a loss, able to fund $800,000 of asset investments but unable to pay market rate rent?
That may not be a question that we're able to answer. CEO, did you want to respond?
That's probably not for us to respond to. What Baris are proposing to do is to improve and increase their ability to be able to manage students on the Lynwood site. They are looking to improve and increase their services to their school community by providing a pathway through from pre-primary and kindy all the way through to year 10. I believe Fountain College goes to year 10. So that is their goal. Whilst they have spoken about potentially transitioning to a childcare type service for which is more for profit business, that would require council to make a decision to support that change of use. Which is why in the key terms we've stipulated that upon that application, that successful application, where they're clearly looking to make and generate more revenue, that there should be a market rent basis that is paid at that point, which is the construct of the lease terms that council is looking at. I think that, the officer's report seeks to defray all of the current costs for the building and maintenance to Baris in the interim, which enables them to construct and deliver a service for our fee that they believe is sustainable. I can't speak to their pricing methodology for a kindy service versus a at school type service. Those questions are for Baris.
Thank you. Thank you, councillors. Any further questions on that matter, please raise them with the Director or the CEO. Look forward to the discussion next Tuesday night. We move on to the next matter on the agenda, which is CC 026 of 24. The title of the report is Land Matters in brackets Phase 1, Welshpool Road Duplication, Acquisition of Land from 320 Welshpool Road. The item is listed on page 59 of tonight's agenda and is on screen. Any questions in relation to the item? Councillor Bain.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm just trying to understand how this parcel of land last year was assessed and valued by McGee's at $290,000, but is now worth $425,000. McGee's advised that market conditions have changed with superior conditions. As a reason, it has bumped up its valuation. What I'm wondering, given the location of this land parcel, its dimensions and the encumbrances on the land, what could it possibly be used for other than an extension of the road reserve?
Director? Who would? CEO.
Thank you. Mr. Bosage is actually in the room, so he'll provide some additional commentary. What I would say, Councillor Bain, is that if it wasn't dedicated and utilised as road reserve, it would be consumed within the property that is currently there, and it would be able to be utilised by the landowner for their purposes. What is evident is that we required and have required that land as for road widening for some time. It has been shown on a range of schemes and maps as such, and I guess they have reasonably set aside that land for that purpose, awaiting its acquisition. The valuation provided by McGee's, I agree, I understand your point. I asked the same questions myself, but McGee's, as a licensed valuer, reviewed their assessment and upgraded their valuation on the basis of the prevailing market conditions in Welshpool of the day. And they did that in consultation with the valuer that was engaged by the property owner, who came in at a larger, higher valuation at $490,000 or thereabouts. And what happens in these cases is the two valuers come together and they agree what is to be a reasonable valuation. That is the methodology that is used in these acquisitions. The proposal was to accept 425 plus a 10% sladium, which is consistent with the Public Works Act, which is often what happens if we were to acquire the land forcibly. But Mr. Bosage might like to make some additional comments.
Mr. Bosage, the question was, considering the incumbents on that piece of land and its locality, what other use other than a road reserve could it possibly ever be used for?
Yep. Through the Mayor, just a bit of history to this site. Over 35 years ago, when the fence was first put up, roughly on that boundary, there was a 5 metre road reservation from both sides of Welshpool Road. This was prior to Orrong Road was ever a road. So the owner at the time did the right thing and put the fence on what was going to be the ultimate road boundary. And this was prior to everything being digital. So when all the service authorities came through and put their services in, they assumed that that 5 metres had been acquired and they put the services in on this person's property. So he hasn't kicked anybody off or anything like that. So if he had have not allowed anybody to put their services on there, the land would have been valued as if it had no encumbrances on it.
Thank you. Any further questions? Councillor Bain?
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. So in paragraph 31, the city notes, the city is purchasing a small area of land at considerable expense. So the question would be, are ratepayers purchasing this parcel of land at a premium commercial rate?
Mr. Bosage?
Yep, through the Mayor, as Michael, or as the CEO has just outlined, it is the commercial rate. Both valuers have come together. Michael has, or the CEO has questioned officers about this increase in valuation. We've gone through the valuation and looked at the properties that have been sold in the last 6 to 8 months. And we are of the view it is a fair valuation. And just keep in mind that this project is funded 2/3 by Main Roads under the Road Improvement Grant.
Thank you. Councillor Bain?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So you noted that other parcels, similar parcels of land were sold in the Welshpool area, and we took note of the price at least anyway. Did those parcels of land also have drainage encumbrances and other utilities on them as well?
Mr Bosich?
Yes, through the Mayor, no, they didn't. But if this did go to SAT or something like that, the argument would have been that they would have put car parking on top of those easements. You know, they still would have got their full use of the property in any development, and that's what would have happened if we were to go down the track of challenging it.
Thank you. Councillor Bain, anything further? Thank you. Look, I've got a number of questions. The first of which was going to be, considering the potentially, well, there will be further acquisitions, should this have been a confidential report? It reveals the identities of the parties involved, reveals the method of negotiation and all the negotiations, and it now sets a price precedent for future negotiations with other landholders. I'm just questioning why this isn't a confidential report.
Just
Mr.
through the
Bosich?
Mayor, this is pretty standard. What has happened? All the other parcels of land is land that's owned by the city, or the city has a management order on it, so no money will change hands for any of the other parcels of land.
Okay, my second question was just in paragraph 2, part G for golf. Can council be provided with the crash data that's referred to in there as part of the business case? There's crash data referenced in that paragraph, but it doesn't appear in the report, not that I can see.
Yep, through the Mayor, we can provide that information.
Thank you. I just wanted to know, what is the total project cost, not including the provisional cost of acquisitions? So the department has provided funding for the project, which is 3/4 of the cost of the project, and has provided some authority for us to use that funding, part of that funding, or all of the funding for the purpose of acquisitions, I believe, from reading the report. But aside from the acquisition of land, the provisional sum set aside for the provisional acquisition of land, what is the total project cost?
Yep, through the Mayor, paragraph 25 outlines that. So the total cost is 7.89 million, of which we're going to get a grant of 5.26, and the city will contribute 2.63 million.
I thought that total included the cost of acquisitions.
That does include the cost of
Yeah,
land
so
as
what
well.
I'm asking you is, what is the city must have a provisional cost in its mind now that we're potentially spending $460,000 on this block. We must comfortably know what potentially we will pay for all the other acquisitions along that strip. So that, I guess, would come off that 7.89 million.
Yes,
What would be that figure?
Yep, through the Mayor. Yep, we had just over 600,000 in our budget for land acquisition, and as well as surveying fees as well. So with the 4 or 5 other blocks where we're only going to be paying surveying fees, and the price that we're looking at paying for this block,
Okay.
it's well within our budget estimate.
And I just wanted to know, can we be provided with, I guess, as an engineering report or some sort of condition report that would provide evidence in paragraph 1 where it says there was a claim there, Troy, about significant pavement failures in multiple locations. Is there a report to provide council?
Yep. Through the Mayor, you can drive along the road or just look on an aerial photograph and see all the patching that was done. The State Football Centre, that came upon us early, or we never knew that was going to happen. So if we could have aligned everything, we would have aligned any development with the upgrading of the road there. So we had to go in and fix up the poor sections of road prior to the State Football Centre holding its first event.
So that's, I understand that. I drive along that road regularly. I was out there this morning, but to take your point though, there's no condition report. That's just from officers' observations or general knowledge of the road.
Through the Mayor, we can provide that information to you.
Thank you. Just in relation to the valuations that are referred to in paragraphs 11 through to 16, can we be provided with copies of the actual valuations themselves that's been provided to council in previous reports? And I think it's important that they be provided in this instance. Can that occur?
Yes.
I also took, I did notice that Councillor Bain raised the mention of the solatium payment of 10%. Can I ask you whether or not that is a regular part of these sorts of negotiations? I found it extraordinary that we would be paying for the inconvenience caused to a landowner who, in paragraph 9, the city states that he has been insistent that the city acquire the land. I'm just wondering, since he's been insistent that we do this, why are we paying him an extraordinary $40-something thousand for the time invested in negotiating this outcome?
Yep, through the Mayor, all my time at the city, it's been pretty consistent that we do pay that solatium of 10%. And I do understand that other councils, they may not, but as has always been a practice at the city to pay that 10%.
Can I ask why it's always been the practice of the city? And is that well known? Is that why valuers are now coming at us and just asking us to put that in the contract? Is it because we just do it for every valuation? Is that what you're saying?
I think it is. A majority of councils do pay that 10%.
The basis of it is, can I just ask though, and you might not be able to answer this, Mr. Bosic, where's the basis of that payment? Where does it appear in what legislation? I've never heard of it before. It just seems extraordinary to me that we would pay a landowner 10% of an extraordinarily large amount of money for nothing other than the inconvenience of the negotiations.
I'll take that on notice.
Thank you. CEO?
Yeah, look, I believe that the solatium was actually incorporated into the Public Works Act. It is a common, it is referenced, and Mr. Yildiz might have some additional commentary. It is often applied when you're compulsory acquiring land for public works. It is common in government to do so, and that is probably why it's being referenced by the party acting on behalf of the property owner. The alternative to not reaching agreement and not, I think it is open for the city to negotiate an outcome in this instance. The alternative, of course, is that we compulsory acquire this parcel of land. Now, the process and value and cost of doing that, we think, would be more than the value that is being agreed to here.
Thank you. And just my final two questions. Can I just ask, why is it that we are putting in a 6 metre wide median? And would we need to acquire all of this additional land and some of these other ancillary works if we didn't actually do that? Why are we putting in a 6 metre median? Could it have been 2 metres or less or not at all?
Yes, through the Mayor, I think all of our dual carriageway roads, we do have a 6 metre wide median. At times they do get narrowed down to 5.5 or 5, but the primary purpose of the median here was to allow a right turn pocket into the State Football Centre so that when people turn in, they can turn in safely, and when they turn out, they can store in a 6 metre median before they undertake the right-hand turns in 2 movements. Move over into the median, then merge in with the traffic. Also, the city's land on the north side of the State Football Centre, we're also making allowances so that should we develop that land, we'll have safe right turn access into and out of the site.
Yeah, okay. So Willary and Varland Avenue, though, they wouldn't be 6 metres, would they?
Yes, 6
They're
metres.
both 6 metre wide medians.
Some sections may be 5.5, but generally 6 metres.
Okay. Okay, I have no further questions. Any other questions on that item? Councillor Kunza?
Thank you, Mayor Hall. Just the one. Following my last commentary on this, I just would like to know whether the city has a list of private property that has encumbrances on it for public purposes, specifically where the city intends to develop at some point for public purposes, and whether the city's been approached by the private landowners seeking the city to purchase it.
Mr. Bosic, can I refer that to you? You may be able to answer that one.
Through the Mayor, our mapping identifies all the properties that we need for all of our roadworks coming over for the next 20 years. And just clicking a few buttons, we can see whether there's easements over those. but very rarely do we get approached by people to purchase the property. In this case here, we did approach during CEO Kane's days here. That's when we were first approached by the owner. So we did contact all the service authorities that also had their services through there to see if we could, if they would look at contributing to the purchase of this land, because the city's infrastructure, our drainage, we had the easement, but all the service authorities, they just went over the top of somebody's property. So they were just not interested in being a party of compensating the owners back in 2019.
Thank you, Mr. Bosic. And I know we don't really have any greenfield sites in the city, but are there any other public purposes that we have encumbrances for that we might purchase at some point, besides road reserves?
CEO?
Thanks for the question, Councillor Kunze. Not to my knowledge, but can I take it on notice and we'll come back to you?
Thank you, councillors. We shall move to the next item being, and thank you, Mr. Bosic. We'll move to 7.3, the Directorate of Mr. Graham Bride, the Director of Planning and Development. It's PD 009 of 24. The title of the report being Submission to DevelopmentWA on the draft Bentley redevelopment plan, master plan and draft Bentley redevelopment scheme. The officer's recommendation is on screen and also appears on page 67 of tonight's agenda. Are there any questions in relation to the recommendation? Councillor Bain, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A number of questions, if I may. I appreciate that the scheme, one of the scheme objectives is to restrict car parking provisions. I just want to confirm, and if the city can, that medium-rise apartments will be afforded 0.75 bays per dwelling. Is that correct?
Director Bride?
Yeah, through Mr. Mayor, I might just ask Manager Donaghy if he can answer that question.
Mr. O'Donoghue?
Through Mr. Mayor, yes, the master plan identifies the parking ratios for multiple dwellings as well as single and group dwellings. So the 0.75 is the minimum parking ratio for multiple dwellings.
Councillor Bain?
Does the city consider that adequate?
Mr. Donaghy?
Yes, would be the simple question through you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Anything further?
Yes,
Councillor
thank you,
Bain.
Mr. Mayor. Just a note, just in the submission from the city, it refers to Dumont Road on one occasion when it should be Dumont Street. I'm just struggling to understand why Main Roads WA is not supportive of upgrading the Dumont and Manning Road intersection, given the city has already assessed it as being problematic and would qualify as having black spot funding. Could the city explain, if it could, Main Road's position?
Director Bride?
Yeah, through Mr. Mayor, I might ask Mr. Bosic to go into a bit more detail on the main roads.
Mr. Bosic, why is that not supported?
Yes, through the Mayor. So it's quite a strange email that we got back from Main Roads. As you're aware, it qualifies for funding. Just because it qualifies for funding doesn't mean that Main Roads will approve it, because many intersections would qualify for funding for signals. But they have left the door open. They haven't said no. So we've passed those comments on to DevelopmentWA, and we think that, you know, if somebody in the state government was to put a bit of pressure on Main Roads to approve the signals, they could go in. But speaking to the officers, it was more, let's wait and see how it develops. Once there's a bit more traffic generated, there may be a greater desire for them to approve it. And should they approve it, we'll get the 2/3 funding, and we'd open up discussions with DevelopmentWA about funding the 1/3.
Thank you. Councillor Bain, yes, of course.
Just final one, Mr. Mayor. Is it the city's expectation that DevelopmentWA will construct themselves the majority of affordable and social housing on site?
Director Bride?
Through Mr. Mayor, they haven't given us an exact ratio or number of dwellings that they will actually build, but certainly as part of stage one, there's about 45 lots in stage one, and that would likely start mid next year. They have talked to us about building a whole row of dwellings, townhouse dwellings adjacent to the public open space. to us, I guess, set the standard so that those that buy into the area get an understanding of the quality of the development. So they are looking at potentially building some sites themselves, but certainly not the majority of the lots.
Thank you. I did just have one comment just on the submission, and I wondered whether or not it was too late to consider just providing a little bit more narrative around. And I don't have the reference on me for some reason. I think it was page 9. It talks about the social housing in there. Councillor Bain might be able to help me out with the reference, but on that page, it talked about it. It was only, I think, one paragraph on that about the fact that the city is hopeful that there will be an emphasis on seniors housing, social housing for seniors and singles. I had hoped that that would have been the cornerstone of our submission. I would have hoped, after all the discussions we've had on that matter, that that would have been given more than just a paragraph in there, that we would have really, emphasised the fact that this city believes that there would be great social benefit from the state government concentrating on seniors and single housing in that area for public housing. Director Bride, is it too late to actually provide a little bit more narrative around that?
Certainly, Mr. Mayor. Obviously, it's only a draft at this stage. Next week, we can have a look at the submission. But if you've got any particular words, we're happy to sit down with yourself and look at maybe an amendment to strengthen that a bit more as well.
You're looking on page 86.
Page 86, thank you. But just on that, are you saying that I can provide something to you for consideration? Is that what you're saying? What would be the easiest way to deal with that?
I think it's probably worth having a discussion outside of the meeting to just get an understanding of what we could add in there, which delivers the same message but maybe strengthens it a bit more. And certainly, if that doesn't go far enough in your eyes, you can certainly then, we're happy to work with you with establishing a more substantial amendment. So perhaps maybe after the meeting we can discuss that one.
Yeah, thank you. Any other questions on that item, councillors, before we move on? Thank you. We shall move on to the next item then, which is item 7.4. Director Warren Bowe, the Director of Infrastructure and Environment, is the responsible officer for the following report. It is IE 017 of 24. The report title is Tender 18/2024 for tree, tubestock and turf watering services. The recommendation appears on page 91 of tonight's agenda and is presently on screen. Questions, please, councillors. Councillor Kunza, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Hall. Look, I've just got one question through to Director Bowe. Over the years, I've had comments, complaints, concerns raised with respect to tree watering, whether it's happening or the quality of the tree watering. I note paragraph 43 states with respect to the KPI that the city will monitor the volume of water use, but how does the city intend to make sure that the quality of watering is correct? Because not only is this is proper and appropriate, because not only is this contract quite expensive, but the investment, sorry, Mr. Mayor, I'm just asking a question. Sorry, I'm asking it to Director Bowe.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Just with respect to ensuring the quality of the watering is done, because we've obviously we've got a big contract here, but also the investment into the trees themselves is quite substantial.
Director Bowe.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thanks for the question, Councillor Kunza. Firstly, the KPIs that you reference in that part of the report was actually a modified version from the draft, and that section really focused on the city's abstraction licence and the access of that abstraction licence by the preferred contractor. And I realise now that rereading that report, it seems as though they're the only KPIs that I've mentioned in the report, but there are significant other KPIs in there, primarily 95% attendance at the watering locations, which we were able to track through GPS, plus or minus 5% of the water volume applied that's prescribed in the contract, less than 5% of the tree wells that are installed around the trees to be damaged, 100% compliance with the dieback management plan 100% compliance with contractors completing their work health and safety inductions with the city. So they're some of the other inherent KPIs that aren't referenced in the report that we would manage the contractor through. You'll note also that through our contractor management, we had to terminate the previously appointed contractor. So certainly that's something that our staff take seriously. And unfortunately, the application of water or the non-application of water is only indicated through lag measures, i.e. the trees dying. So we have a number of initiatives proposed by which we can better monitor the performance of the contractor. We have engaged with staff in relation to the current methodology, both the current performance, whether or not the way we're administering that contract and the contractor is working is effective, the amount of water and how it's applied. So we've reviewed that scope and we're confident that through appropriate contractor management that we'll be able to achieve the objectives of that contract.
Councillor Kunz, anything else?
No, that's a great answer and good to hear. Thank you.
Yeah, I threw to the right person. Well done, Director. Good work. Deputy Mayor.
I've got excuse me, sorry, I've got a few questions. Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Who currently holds the short-term Category A contract?
Director Bowe.
That is Baroness Holdings, Deputy Mayor, yes.
Okay, and on the confidential attachments under this item, it says the following is provided on a separate cover, which is a consolidated evaluation score sheet, but I cannot seem to find that anywhere. Am I going blind, or was
Director
that
Bowe,
not
can you locate
included?
that?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Madam Deputy Mayor. I think what it is referring through to is page 7 of the attachment.
No, page 13, item 9. Oh, sorry, you're saying that is on page 7?
That's the consolidated assessment table.
Okay, all right, that's why I couldn't find it, because it was on a different page. And secondly, have we had a contract, a long-term one, with any of the tenderers before?
Director
Category A?
I might just ask Mr. Williams, our service lead of City Greening, but he's indicating that we have. I certainly know we have had pre-existing contracts with other contractors who are listed under Category B,
Yep.
But Mr. Williams has confirmed that we have had previous contracts with Category A suppliers.
Okay. And why are we awarding Category B so far in advance, although I know it's only small, and does this guarantee that pricing, is that pricing fixed, even though we're not awarding it till September 2025?
Director Bowe.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We chose to approach the market for both categories, so we didn't have to revisit it next year. We have a significant volume of procurements and public tender. We're a pipeline of public tenders, so any relief that our staff who are administering those can get in the short term is advantageous to us, and the prices are fixed. Yes.
Okay. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Any further questions, councillors? Councillor Bain.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just in addition to Councillor Kunz's questions, will we be using soil moisture testing as part of the KPIs?
Director Bowe.
I don't believe we'll be using it as a measure of the KPIs, Councillor Bain, but we will be measuring it to determine and to deploy the contractors to the areas of need based on the data.
Councillor Bain.
And how will we assess and ensure that the contractor is only using or employing handheld watering methods?
Director.
We will be undertaking observations ourselves, Councillor Bain, as I'm sure you're aware, we will be no doubt receiving some feedback from our highly valued environmental groups who are out there doing great work as well.
Thank you, councillors. We shall move on to IE 019 of 24. The title of the report is the Proclamation of Leach Highway Interchange at Welshpool Road. The officer's recommendation is on screen, also appears on page 99 of tonight's agenda. Are there any questions in relation to that proclamation? None, thank you. We shall move on then to the office of Mr. Gary Fisher. There are no reports from that directorate this evening. We do have a notice of motion for consideration at the next ordinary council meeting. That's at item 8 on tonight's agenda. It's a notice of motion put by councillors Bain and Page. It also appears on page 113 of the agenda and is on screen. Are there any questions in relation to that NOM, which is NOM 009 of 24, title being Abandoned Shopping Trolleys? Councillor Kunze, yes.
I just had one question. Whilst I appreciate that nothing would compare to Westfield Carousel, abandoned shopping trolleys are a problem around Southlands, around Riverton Forum. Just wondering whether there was whether the city would be doing a similar sort of process with other shopping centres.
Director, thank you.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, so obviously the motion is to kind of write to those shopping centres as well around our locality to raise our concerns.
Councillor Kunze?
Sorry, I missed that point. What you're proposing to write to everyone, or you're just saying that you only write to the ones within that's mentioned in Part A?
Through you, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Mr. Fisher.
I don't think there's a problem with us writing to other shopping centres within our locality.
Sorry, I misread it. It says all the district, including. Sorry, gotcha. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Hearn?
It's my observation that these wandering trolleys generally follow specific routes, and I know since the Metro networks have been in place that we've had a lot less trolleys across on that side of the city, across the railway. And I'm just wondering if perhaps Director Bowe might know if there's any kind of devices that the city could install on pathways, on the travellators, when you put your trolley in it, they don't move. If we put them on the pedestrian bridges across the railway, or whatever we identify as the most travelled routes for these wandering trolleys, is there a role for the city to play in infrastructure to stop these trolleys wandering all over the place?
I think I'll go to Director Bowe, but I think there's actually technology available to stop them leaving the car parks. It'd be easier to do that. But Director, do you know of anything that would assist?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Nothing springs to mind. We can look into it, Councillor Hearn, but certainly retrofitting it would be expensive, and any other devices that creates uneven surfaces or trip hazards or anything like that, we probably wouldn't be supportive of. But we can have a look and get back to you on that one.
Thank you, Councillor Page.
I don't know the answer to this. Do you want me to answer that question?
No.
Okay.
But thank you. Any further questions, councillors, on the item? Thank you. We'll turn to item 9 then on tonight's agenda, which is urgent business. There is none. Confidential matters. Council will now consider a confidential matter. I thank members of the public for their attendance tonight and ask that they please, or one of them, thank you, Sian, leave the chamber in order for council to consider the item. Thank you, governance. Just wait till the doors are closed. 6:55 p.m. I thank you all for your attendance, and I look forward to seeing you next Tuesday evening, if not before. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, governance. Thank you, staff.